James Browne is bringing some measures to Cabinet today. Included among them is the idea of rent transparency, where in future a tenant and a landlord will be required to report to the RTB exactly how much rent is being paid every month. And on that basis, there might be public transparency around what the going rates are in a particular building or in a particular district. And it might lend some of the same transparency to the rental market as currently exists to the sales market, where, of course, since the best part of the last decade, there has been a residential property price register. Micheál Martin on his way into the Cabinet outlining some of the other matters that James Browne was bringing to Cabinet today.
In the Cabinet today, Minister James Browne is bringing forward legislation to give effect to his reforms in the rental market, extending the RPZ nationally to give greater protections, establishment of a rent register, and also creating the framework which will enable more private sector investment to come into the market, given the clarity and stability to the market that he is bringing through these legislative changes.
Now, but one matter which is not on today's Cabinet agenda and which appears to be a little while away yet is the government's overall new housing plan, a successor to Housing for All and the previous Rebuilding Ireland, which had been promised by James Browne a little earlier in the year, but which appears to have been delayed yet again and is not, at least, on today's Cabinet agenda. That has been singled out by the Social Democrats spokesperson on housing, Rory Hearn, who says it's a sign that perhaps the government is not completely on top of its own policy.
It was promised in July, it was then promised in September. Simon Harris said it would be coming in a matter of weeks. We're now the middle of October and we're being told again it's weeks away. If this is how the government approaches the housing crisis, it is just so depressing, so frustrating. It seems to be put between Micheál Martin, between Simon Harris. There's no one taking responsibility. They've put in a minister who, I don't want to get personal about this, but Minister Browne, to me, seems out of his depth in terms of the housing crisis and the housing disaster.
Now, one other developing story here at Leinster House this lunchtime is the news from Aontú that they will be using their time next week to put down a motion of no confidence in the Taoiseach, Simon Harris, over his handling when he was Minister for Health of the children's spinal surgery issue. Now, if the Dáil schedule were to run as it regularly does, that would mean that there would be a debate on Simon Harris's future on the Wednesday of next week, not tomorrow, but 8 days' time, and a vote in the Dáil that evening. However, I understand in the last few minutes from sources within government that they are keen to avoid that dribbling into next week, and given that it has already been announced that there will be such a motion, it may well be added to the Dáil schedule this week, with the government using its voting majority to vote it down in advance. That might spare the government the idea of having that vote taking place just 2 days before the presidential election, but in the meantime it will reanimate some debates around the government's handling of children's spinal surgery issues and indeed the handling of Simon Harris when he was the Minister for Health.